we have to talk about Frontier, the Planet games, and the future of our dearly loved games. In this video, we are going to talk about the current situation of Frontier developments and also what kind of effects that will have on the games like Planet Zoo, a potential Planet Coaster 2, Jurassic World Evolution 2, and many others. So we are going to look at the current situation that Frontier lead to basically have all these layoffs announced that you've potentially heard of. If not, in a nutshell, Frontier has announced a week ago about that they will also cut down staff by over 20% to, well, save money, you know, because they're not doing too well. For those of you who've seen the kind of reports, the annual reports and stuff, and for those of you who know how to read them, you've already seen that there is some, you know, info in there to already understand that they're not doing particularly well. There are a couple of reasons, I think. You know, I'm not an expert, but you can clearly tell, and also from reading into their data and their statements, you can definitely tell that they have specifically issues of games that didn't do that good as they were expecting. And clearly we can talk about the F1 game, for example, which is kind of selling good, but then again, it's not as good as it needs to be for an IP that expensive. We also need to talk about Jurassic World Evolution 2, which, to be fair, as I've said in my latest review, has become a great game, but surely wasn't at the beginning, and maybe it's not selling that much. We also have to talk about the problems that Elite Odyssey have brought to the table when Elite Odyssey was released, kind of, I guess, and then scrapped for consoles, and a huge mess going on there. And we also have to talk about games like Planet Zoo that still doesn't have, you know, birds or full aquatic animals. And surely enough, Planet Zoo is their best-selling game in a way. I'll come to that in a moment, so keep with me, stick with me. We need to talk about that. It's very important. If you are interested in the Planet games, if you are interested in Frontier's games, make sure to watch the entire video. There are a lot of points in here we have to consider before really looking into what is the most likely scenario for the future, at least what I think. But hold on. So they have had some mishaps in the past, but we also have to talk about the fact that Frontier did grow at a pace that is not really, even in the games industry, not normal. So when I first met Frontier, that is over 6 years ago, Frontier used to be a rather small, quite, you know, emerging but rather small studio that just had released their second title ever and the first other title than Elite Dangerous, and that was Planet Coaster at the time, which was a small game, but you know, it became something bigger because it basically took over the heritage and the legacy of Roller Coaster Tycoon. So it kind of opened up into a wider audience of simulation game and park builder game audiences. And then Planet Zoo basically, you know, topped this yet again with a game that is even more attractive for a wider audience, making a huge step for them in 2019. And with the release of a IP-based game that was Jurassic World Evolution in 2018, they had everything in front of them, you know. The world was open, there were 3 great games selling great at the time, and then just a year later, Planet Coaster was announced as a console edition, which, to be fair, at that time, seemed everything going super well. And behind the scenes, they were working on Elite Odyssey, so a lot was happening, a lot of people were employed, and then a global pandemic happened. Now, I think it's one of these things that the whole industry maybe have overseen a little, I guess, but the first impact of the pandemic situation was that people stayed at home and they had more time to play games, which effectively meant that everything that was already set in stone and basically the path that was paved now was even used by a lot more people and a lot more people going there. So it all looked even brighter, you know. Sales were great, people were playing, the player base was good, and so it looked like as if it was going forever. And you know, I think the anticipation and the expectation in the industry was kind of that this is gonna go like that forever now, because people have been brought to the gaming and they will surely stick with gaming. And yes, of course, when pandemic is over, they may not actually stop playing at all, but you know, they will not play as much, but they still would, you know, be gamers now. But I think what most of the people in this industry and in many others, so it's not like a failure of one industry, it's basically a failure and a wrong expectation in general. The effects of the pandemic, specifically the economic effects for the people, for like the, you know, the public people, for every consumer in the world, is actually happening now. So yeah, there's some other stuff going on in the world too, but specifically in the games industry, the result of the pandemic, having less money and, focusing on other things maybe at the moment and being tired of, stuff that you've done during that time and all these kind of things together meant that now there is a huge number of people that are not focusing so much more into gaming anymore. And also because of all the mess ups in the last 2 or 3 years of gaming studios, not even Frontier. I mean, just, look at some of the releases lately, how much of backlash has happened there because of games not being ready maybe, and I don't know, people looking closer into it. So there are a lot of things that come to the table now that caused this situation. Okay, but enough of that, okay? So that the moment was coming now, and there are a lot of factors influencing that, why the games industry is in a problematic situation. And Frontier unfortunately fell into the same trap in a way, because specifically with F1, they have a huge IP that needs to be paid, obviously, and then the game is potentially also not the right game at the right time, I guess. F1 became more popular due to the Netflix series, but then again, you've got Max Verstappen winning basically every single race. So it's not even that exciting anymore. And the first game was not really that great. I've heard, I didn't even test the second game, but I've heard it's much, much better. But they already lost a huge potential audience for that game with the first game being broken. And then with the communication, which was even a little bit of a problem when they said, this one is not going to be fixed anymore, like the last year's one, because they will bring off the new ones. But obviously the new one has to be paid and purchased, So a lot of communication things going down the wrong way. And now this is where we are setting off now for the next chapter of the video. Communication is a huge deal, and it can save you a lot or destroy a lot. And in Frontier's case at the moment, I think it's rather destroying more than it does save. And I think, from the statements of the community managers on Twitter and so on, you can definitely see that this is also internally a thing. But I mean, towards the games and towards the games fans and audiences, you don't really know what's going on. Do we know how long Planet Zoo is going to be supported? I mean, surely the team behind, the community team and so on, they are beautiful people. They are amazing. How much passion they've put into the live streams and with how much passion they are doing the socials and stuff. It's all great, but this shall not hide that what is going on behind. Like the last DLC, as much as I love the animals, it just kind of felt the first time maybe a little bit, I don't know, end time scenario, if you will. Honestly, for me, it was a great DLC. I would rank it rather high than low, but I can see the point, the content and the number of pieces in there, maybe even the animals themselves. You don't really know what's going on, We only know that there will be kind of anniversary stuff maybe, but we do know it from the files rather than from Frontier. And also the statements in the annual report were kind of wishy-washy, you don't really know if there's support going on. I mean, we know that it's until the end of the year, so potentially a holiday DLC is going to drop, but what is going to happen after? What is going to happen with Planet Coaster? They never officially announced that Planet Coaster's support has ended. So all we know is that we are at a point where we don't really know what's going on. And now I want to get back to the situation we talked about at the beginning. Frontier has announced a huge cut with staff, but that also means a financial cut. And now this is very interesting, because what do you do with a studio that has so many games on the table at the moment? What way are you going to face? Like, surely if it's all about the money, you have to focus on what is making you money. And this is where we circle back to Planet Zoo. If you look at the annual report, you can definitely tell that Planet Zoo, if you take out all the factors, is by far the best-selling game. It has basically outperformed Jurassic World Evolution 1, it has outperformed Planet Coaster by a mile, and it is even outperforming a kind of relative, because of, not being on console and stuff, Elite Dangerous. So Planet Zoo is a great selling game, and since it's their own IP, they do not owe anyone to pay the IP. So even though Jurassic World Evolution may have been a great success, and Jurassic World Evolution 2 even more so, but you have to pay the fees, you have to pay the bill of Universal, I guess, as well. So the huge chance they have is now to roll back a little and focus on what they own. Focus on what doesn't create these insane costs on paying licenses. I don't know anything about the deals. I have no idea if they have like one huge license that they paid upfront and it's already paid and you're good to go and it's basically yours now, or if there is still something where they pay for every sold unit, for every sold DLC, a small amount or whatever, a big amount, you don't know how much, to the IP, giving, people or whoever that is, but in this case Universal. I simply cannot believe that they, that Universal would make a deal where they have everything paid up front and then nothing else afterwards. That would also be completely contrary to the marketing, completely contrary to their project, so I'm basically sure that they would. The same goes with F1. I mean, they've just raised all the different fees for the racetracks, for the marketers, for Netflix, for everyone basically, so why would they stop with the game? That does make no sense whatsoever. EA did purchase the actual game from Codemasters because they basically purchased Codemasters, it's that way, it's not that they paid, they didn't buy the game, they bought the studio, but whatever. At the end of the day, this all seems to be very unlikely, at least in my book, that there are no fees involved. So if I would be a studio that has to, you should definitely take cutting stuff as one of the last things you do, because they have all been saying that they needed staff to fix everything they had. So it's now the exact opposite of what is needed. And so that's never a good sign. But the question is, where would you cut? Would you cut on your own projects where you can still make money? Or would you cut on other projects where you even pay money for being successful? See, and there's a problem with that. This is the logical explanation I would have for that. But it's not the way economy and everything works. Because, and that's pretty simple, maybe they don't even need to pay fees. Maybe they have a set goal, what they have to achieve. So it's either way. And this is where the meme from the beginning comes in. It's basically the right or the left turn. If it's left turn and it's more positive than negative, for example, or the right turn, then you don't really know what the effect is on the other side of things. So let me just give you an example. Let's just imagine that they would focus everything now on the Planet franchise, and we would receive Birds and Aquatics and whatnot, and then the announcement of Planet Coaster 2 in a rather short amount of time, and maybe have both existing next to each other at least for a while. That would be at least very efficient for them in terms of sales and in terms of making money, maybe bringing Zoo to console simultaneously, so you have both games on console as well. Maybe make the release of Planet Coaster 2 already relatively quickly followed on console. Not sure if they plan it anyways to release, you never know, but that could be the one scenario. Now really with the cuts, but then put people on there. However, what's going to happen with the other projects? What's going to happen with F1? They have if I remember correctly, there was a 4-year contract with them, so at least 4 different F1 games would be released, so 2 more to come. Is the team that you already have, is that enough? Can you cut them down? You never know. How much of an interface is between those 2 teams in terms of skill and so on, or seniority or whatever? You have to focus on what is good and what not. And so basically these things are very hard to judge from the outside, obviously. But I think logically the scenario would still be focusing on the Planet games. But then again, on the other hand side, you need to fulfill the agreements you have with IP giving, people and so on. So I really hope that there is a good chance that these IP-based games are more or less not done, but let's say doable with less of the people available maybe, and then they can focus back to what made them strong. And this is where I want to end the video with. I think Frontier, as much as I think it's a super bad situation for the people working there, and as much as I'm aware of the fact that no one wants layoffs at all, I think for the whole studio and for the situation where they were going in the past, it's very healthy to focus back on what made them strong. I'm not saying it's healthy to shrink down or get people out. It's never healthy, but what I think is healthy is that they have to focus now. And I really seriously hope they will focus on what made them strong, bring out the games that the community loves, make it together with the community. They have shown with Planet Coaster, the making of Planet Coaster, the development until the full release during the alpha and beta. They have shown they work together with the community beautifully to create a wonderful game. There is a reason why Planet Coaster is seen as the actual successor to the Roller Coaster Tycoon franchise. There is a reason why Planet Zoo has become so much better in comparison to the beginning. There is a reason why Jurassic World Evolution 2 is a much better game than Jurassic World Evolution 1 after a while now. Frontier has shown that they can work together with the community beautifully. However, I think they didn't always have the availability of resources they would have needed to fulfill everything that they knew they had to fulfill to make it an actually great game and make it actually sell even better. I ideally hope, as I said, that they will reconsider this now and give way for making actual great games. And now, to bring this to a very precise scenario, I should say, that I would hope that's going to happen is that for this year's time, we will obviously receive a great update of anniversary update, something very nice again, as always. But then my first wish is, oh my god, just hit the microphone again. I really hope that at the end of the year, we will see a big DLC that showcases it's not end, it's actually continuous support for Planet Zoo, at least throughout the next year. And maybe with the Birds DLC in kind of the way how exhibits work, walkthrough exhibits, or it's like a full aquatic DLC. Both of these would definitely bring back people. The game itself is great, and the game, frankly, is in a state that you don't need a second part of it. It still is great enough to be updated. There is no reason why this game should not have support anymore. Planet Coaster was a totally different story. The game was old because of the development in engines and stuff like that. The engine couldn't be supported by the new versions of the engines. That is all different now. You know, Planet Zoo runs on the latest version of their own engine. They have made insane improvements over the time. They have learned from the Planet Coaster time. So there's a lot of reasons why this works differently than Planet Coaster 2. Now, this is a good segue. Planet Coaster 2, by the way, would be something I would love to be seen announced in November time, and hopefully planned for maybe 3 of next year, or maybe end of Q2, because that's the earliest it can possibly be released, because I do think that this would be the best case scenario for them, because they know they have the audience, they know this will sell well, they have the foundation of the game, they have the skill in the studio to make this work. So I think in times where you can't take too many risks, that is the lowest risk ever you can take and the most guaranteed success you can have. So whether it's been scrapped or not, you never know, or if there is something alive in there, I really hope that they reconsidered also the release framing of this, because imagine they would have, you know, will be releasing it end of next year. It's quite a stretch. What would you do in between? I have no idea how their other game they released during Gamescom works at the moment, the Warhammer thing. I'm too little into it. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. I have no idea how the reception is. I found it kind of nice playing it, but I'm not an expert in that field, so I better do not say anything about this. I really wish they have success with that, but yet again, it's another franchise that you have to pay for. So a lot of things said in this video. I hope it gave you a good insight of what's going on and you could follow me along. I stayed at my wishes, and I really hope that I'm somewhat true and somewhat right with what I've said. And we can expect a good future for Planet Zoo especially, and also maybe a Planet Coaster 2 at some point. Yeah, so everything we can do is just wait, I guess, at this point. So hopefully you like this video, and if you want to see more of these types of videos, let me know in the comments down below. There's a lot to talk about, frankly, we have in the gaming industry in general, but also about the games we love. We could make a video like that about Cities Skylines 2, I'm afraid, but hey, I mean, here we are trying our best to get through this time and hopefully see some good games on the horizon, or get the games we love and already have improved over time, and get more stuff included in it. Now that's it. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed that one. I just hit the microphone one more time for you guys. Yeah, have a good one. Thank you so much for the support. Bye.